Members of Congress should not be selling individual stocks, put it in a blind trust, trade in mutual funds. But we should know, the American people should know, that a member of Congress is never leaving a classified briefing and calling their stockbroker. The Speaker put forth really a bill destined to fail.
House Democrat Abigail Spanberger went after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi for stalling bipartisan legislation that would prevent members of Congress from being able to trade individual stocks. Now, this is incredibly important legislation, and Pelosi had made clear previously and faced a lot of backlash that she wasn't really in favor of banning members of Congress from engaging in this activity because she believes in the free market. And so she decided to stall the legislation by putting out her own horse crap version of it that had a massive loophole that effectively made the newer piece of legislation completely irrelevant. Now, I want to go to the rest of Spanberger's argument here. Unfortunately, it's made on Fox News. I wish MSNBC covered this and gave Spanberger an opportunity to air her issues with Pelosi on this matter. But unfortunately, Fox News wanted to cover it for their own political purposes. Let's watch what she has to say, and then I'll give you more details.
We, Chip Roy, Republican from Texas, and I have worked on this legislation since the early days of COVID. We put forth a bill straightforward. Members of Congress should not be selling individual stocks, put it in a blind trust, trade in mutual funds. But we should know, the American people should know, that a member of Congress is never leaving a classified briefing and calling their stockbroker. The Speaker put forth really a bill destined to fail. A very good option existed in the bipartisan one that Chip Roy and I have. We have more than 70 co-sponsors from across the country, Democrats and Republicans. And the Speaker has employed stall tactic after stall tactic in order to kind of keep delaying what's potentially a vote on any bill that would ban members of Congress from selling stocks, buying and selling stocks. And she put forth a bill that wasn't a good faith effort. I've been very clear on that. And I'm disappointed, but the American people are the ones who are mad about it. I hear about this across my district.
Now, Bret Baier is interviewing her, and this conversation is taking place on Fox News because, make no mistake about it, the right wing has an agenda. They want to use this to campaign against Democrats, as if Democrats are the only ones who are investing in individual stocks, as if Democrats are the only ones who are corrupted by this. As we know, there's all sorts of insider trading happening in Congress by parties of both by members of both parties. And so I want to make that clear. This isn't a Democrat or Republican issue. This is a bipartisan issue. It's a corruption issue. And the fact that Nancy Pelosi stood in the way of this legislation, even getting a vote, is absolutely disgusting. And she didn't even give this legislation an opportunity for a floor vote. What she did is promote legislation that had a loophole. Members of Congress were irritated by it. They were arguing against that. And so she never even brought that version of the legislation up for a vote either. But Cenk, real quick, I just want to give you guys a little more information on what Abigail Spanberger is talking about in regard to the legislation that she sponsored. Spanberger, along with Republican Representative Chip Roy, sponsored the Transparent Representation Upholding Service and Trust in Congress Act in 2020. The bill required members of Congress, along with their spouses and children, to put investments into blind trusts or keep their money in mutual funds. And Pelosi was just not about that.
Yeah, so I want to tell you in a second how the Republicans are using this to batter the Democrats, and it's totally working. But first, let's note for the record that there's been no reaction to Spanberger saying this on Fox News. Now, let's imagine for a second that it was a progressive, that AOC or Cori Bush or any of them had gone on and criticized Democratic leadership super harshly. Already the House would fall in on them. Everybody in media would be, how dare they, they're destroying the Democratic Party. And MSNBC would talk nonstop about how just Democrats are destroying Democrats by attacking Democratic leadership within the last month of the election. Not only that, she attacked Nancy Pelosi on corruption. I mean, God, that's a third rail in Washington, okay? Not only that, she did it on Fox News. Not only that, they're taking that and using it in Republican ads. If a progressive had done it, they would be tarred and feathered and run out of town. A conservative Democrat does it, not a peep. National media in this country is a total joke. total joke. Okay, now to the substance of it. So the Republicans see that they are actually being corrupt. And by the way, we're always fair. So 98% of what Republicans say are usually garbage, and we can show it to you and we prove to you that it's garbage. In this case, it's totally true. Nancy Pelosi and the others are delaying the vote. That's because they're corrupt. They want to keep making money from that insider trading, right? So that part is totally true. But now here's the part they don't tell you. Abigail Spanberger's bill, she painted it on Fox News as perfectly bipartisan. Republicans totally agree with me that we should, be really non-corrupt. Is that true? Of course it's not true. It has 72 co-sponsors. Only 12 of them are Republican. 60 of them are Democrat. If they put it up for a vote, the Republicans would vote no en masse.
Which, by the way, great.
Yeah.
Great. Like a smart tactician, someone who's smart with political strategy, because Nancy Pelosi is painted that way in the corporate press all the time. But how are you smart if you're stalling legislation that is incredibly popular with the American people? Allowing for the Republicans to use the fact that you've stalled on this legislation or you've blocked this legislation to campaign against you. Like, how is that smart? A smart thing would be to allow for this legislation to get a vote. Of course, Republicans are going to vote against it. Of course, you're not going to get the majority of Republicans in the House to support it. They're as corrupt as it gets. So great. Then you have something to campaign against them on.
Instead, they're using it to campaign against you.
Yeah, God.
Okay, look, first of all, the main reason she isn't putting it up for a vote is because she's corrupt. She wants to keep doing insider trading.
Yeah, in fact, let me give you some details about what she and her husband are up to. So Nancy Pelosi and her husband Paul have been among the most prolific traders and even beat the S&P 500 index in 2021, but that wasn't the only year they've done so. They do it all the time because she has insider information that she can trade individual stocks on. A review of disclosures by Newsweek showed that in 2021, Pelosi and her husband, venture capitalist Paul Pelosi, purchased between almost 10 million and nearly 32 million worth of stocks. I'm sorry, how can anyone expect someone who in 1 year spends that much money trading stocks, tens of millions of dollars trade? How do you expect that person to connect with her constituency, to understand her constituency and what actually matters to them in their lives?
Yeah, and look, it's one thing if you're rich, that God bless, but you're fighting for the right policies. You say, I put my money in a blind trust. I'm not giving my money away, but I'm putting it in a blind trust so I can't use the information that I have from Congress to make even more money, right? But she's refusing to do that. She's blocking legislation that would do that. And instead she's saying, I don't know what you're talking about. And it's all over the internet. Her husband and her beat the stock market by wide margins every year. It's by laughable numbers. It's gigantic, right? By the way, national media, Nancy Pelosi corrupt, they'll rip your head off, unless you're a conservative Democrat, right? So now we go back to the Republicans. Since they didn't have a vote on it, they're like, oh my God, they're letting us be corrupt. We would have voted no. This incredibly terrible tactician, Nancy Pelosi, just handed us a gift. So they put it into all their ads all across the country. I'll give you one example. In Iowa, there was a Democrat who was leading by 3. They run this ad exclusively. She's now losing by 8. 11-point swing. She almost certainly has lost her seat because Pelosi refused to vote on this. She would have won the vote anyway. The Republicans would have helped her with the corruption, but she didn't want to risk it, so she handed him a giant gift. If a progressive had helped Republicans 1% of that, the national media would have eviscerated them. Pelosi just did it, not a word. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.